In the quiet town of Maplewood, where little ever happened, lived a man named Jack. He lived alone in an old Victorian house at the edge of town. Jack worked as a mechanic, a job that kept his hands busy, but his mind often wandered. Recently, his thoughts had been haunted by something unsettling. It began one evening as Jack was locking up the garage. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a figure standing at the edge of the street, illuminated by a flickering street lamp. The figure wore a tattered clown costume, its once vibrant colors faded and dirty. A painted smile stretched unnaturally across its face, and a pair of hollow dark eyes stared directly at Jack. Jack shivered, but when he blinked, the clown was gone. He convinced himself it was a trick of the light and went home, trying to forget the eerie encounter. Over the next few days, Jack's unease grew. He began noticing small things: a red balloon tied to his mailbox, footprints in his garden, and the faint sound of carnival music playing in the distance late at night. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. One night, Jack woke to the sound of soft laughter coming from outside his window. Heart pounding, he crept to the window and peeked through the curtains. There, standing in his garden, was the clown. Its face was painted in a grotesque parody of joy, and it held a balloon in one hand. Jack's blood ran cold as the clown raised its other hand and slowly waved. The next day, Jack went to the police, but they dismissed his concerns as a prank. Frustrated and scared, he decided to install security cameras around his property. That night, he stayed up, watching the live feed on his laptop. Hours passed with nothing unusual until, just after midnight, the clown appeared on the screen. It moved silently, almost floating, and approached the house. Jack's heart raced as he watched the clown stop at his front door and stare directly into the camera. Summoning his courage, Jack grabbed a baseball bat and went outside. The night was still and quiet, the air thick with anticipation. He rounded the corner of the house, bat raised, but the garden was empty. The only evidence of the clown's presence was a single deflated balloon lying on the ground. Jack couldn't sleep that night. He sat in his living room, gripping the bat, eyes darting to every shadow. As the first light of dawn crept into the room, he began to relax, hoping the nightmare was over. But it wasn't. The following evening, as Jack was closing up the garage, he heard the familiar sound of soft, mocking laughter. He turned to see the clown standing in the doorway, its painted grin wider than ever. This time it spoke. "Why so serious, Jack?" It whispered in a raspy, inhuman voice. "Don't you want to have fun?" Jack swung the bat, but the clown disappeared into the darkness. He stumbled back into the garage, locking the door and calling the police again. They arrived and searched the property, but found no trace of the clown. They looked at Jack with pity and suggested he might be imagining things. Days turned into weeks, and the clown's appearances became more frequent and brazen. Jack's life was consumed by fear and paranoia. He rarely left his house, his once orderly life now in shambles. One night, as Jack lay in bed, he heard the sound of his front door creaking open. He grabbed the bat and crept downstairs. The house was dark, but he could feel a presence. The clown's laughter echoed through the halls, closer and more menacing than ever. Jack turned the corner and froze. The clown stood at the end of the hallway, its eyes glinting with malice. It took a step forward, then another, until it was inches from Jack's face. The smell of rotting flesh filled the air, and Jack could see the clown's smile was no longer painted. It was carved into its face. "Time to join the circus, Jack," it hissed. The next morning, the townspeople found Jack's house empty. The only sign of his presence was a single red balloon tied to the mailbox, swaying gently in the morning breeze. Jack was never seen again, but sometimes on quiet nights, the people of Maplewood could hear the distant sound of carnival music and the faint echo of a clown's laughter.